The year 1568 holds a quiet place in history. This treaty involved Venice and the Ottoman Empire. It was a moment of diplomacy, a pause in their long, bitter struggle. This pact sought to calm the restless Mediterranean Sea. It reminds us, even today on June 2, 2025, of diplomacy's power. It showed that peace, however brief, was possible. Venice, the queen of trade, needed open sea lanes. The Ottoman Empire, vast and powerful, had its own goals. For a moment, their interests found common ground. The Mediterranean had long been a battleground. This agreement offered a different path, for a while. It was a testament to pragmatism over pride, a fragile hope in a world of constant war. The significance of this 1568 accord is subtle. It did not end the rivalry forever, but it did alter the immediate landscape. It allowed commerce to breathe again. It let diplomats work where soldiers had fought. In the mid-16th century, Venice was a marvel. It was a city built on water, a republic of merchants. Her power was her fleet, her lifeblood was trade. The Serenissima, they called her, the most serene republic. But her serenity was hard-won and easily threatened. Venice held a string of pearls across the sea. These were islands and fortified ports. Crete, Cyprus, Corfu, vital outposts of her empire. They guarded the sea routes to the east. From these routes came spices, silks, and immense wealth. The Ottoman Empire was a giant of the age. It stretched from the Balkans to Egypt, from Persia to Algiers. Sultan Selim II sat on the throne in Constantinople. His father, Suleiman the Magnificent, had expanded the empire greatly. The Ottomans were a formidable land power. Their Janissary soldiers were feared across Europe, but they were also becoming a great sea power. Their fleets challenged Christian dominance in the Mediterranean. The Sultan's gaze often fell upon Venetian possessions. He desired to make the Mediterranean an Ottoman lake. Venice and the Ottoman Empire were old rivals. The island of Cyprus was a prize. It lay in the eastern Mediterranean, rich and strategic. Venetian families owned vast sugar plantations there. Its ports were vital for ships sailing to Syria and Egypt. For Venice, Cyprus was a cornerstone of its eastern trade. Losing it would be a devastating blow. The island had been under Venetian rule since 1489. Its fortifications were strong, but its position was exposed. It was far from Venice, close to Ottoman lands, a tempting target for an ambitious sultan. Sultan Selim II had reasons to desire Cyprus. Some said it was for the island's famous wine. Others pointed to its strategic military value. It could serve as a base to control the Levant. It could disrupt Venetian trade routes effectively. Ottoman advisors whispered of the island's wealth. They spoke of the glory of conquering it for Islam. The Ottoman Empire was expansionist by nature. Cyprus seemed like the next logical step. The pressure to act was building in Constantinople. Before any formal treaty in 1568, tensions were high. Constant warfare was a heavy burden. It consumed men, ships, and treasure. Both Venice and the Ottoman Empire felt this strain. The Serenissima's economy depended on peaceful trade. War disrupted commerce and drained the state's coffers. The Ottomans, despite their vast resources, also faced limits. Campaigns were expensive and soldiers needed pay. There were always other priorities, other borders to defend. A period of calm could allow for recovery and rebuilding. This mutual weariness created an opening for diplomacy. Shifting alliances also played a part. Europe was a patchwork of rival Christian kingdoms. Spain, under Philip II, was the Ottomans' main adversary in the west. Venice often found itself caught in the middle. An alliance with Spain against the Turks was one option, but Spain also had its own interests, sometimes clashing with Venice. The French at times maintained friendly relations with the Sultan. Venice had to navigate these complex relationships carefully. Its survival depended on astute diplomatic maneuvering. A direct treaty with the Ottomans could secure its interests. Venice in particular understood the value of talking. Section 5. Architects of Accord. The men who talked of peace. The path to any treaty is paved by individuals. These are the diplomats, the negotiators, the statesmen. In the context of 1568, several figures were important. On the Venetian side, the bailo in Constantinople was paramount. This position was held by a series of experienced noblemen, men like Marino Cavalli or Marcantonio Barbaro around this period. They had to be shrewd, patient, and courageous. Living in a foreign, often hostile capital was demanding. They represented Venice's anxieties and its hopes for trade. Their dispatches home were filled with vital information. The bailo's role was incredibly complex. He had to understand the intricate politics of the Ottoman court. He needed to build relationships with influential pashas. He had to interpret the Sultan's moods and intentions, all while upholding the dignity and interests of Venice. He would present gifts, argue legal cases for merchants, and most importantly, negotiate the terms of peace and trade. These capitulations, as they were known, were vital. They granted Venetians the right to live and trade in Ottoman lands. Renewing them was a constant diplomatic effort. On the Ottoman side, the Grand Vizier was the key figure. Section 6. The Constantinople Agreement of 1568 renewed pledges for peace and commerce. The agreement reached in 1568 was not a landmark peace treaty. It did not end a major war with dramatic territorial changes. Instead, it was more likely a renewal of existing understandings, a reaffirmation of the odd name or capitulations. These were charters of privilege granted by the Sultan. They allowed Venetian merchants to reside and trade within Ottoman domains. Such renewals were periodic and essential for Venice. They ensured the continuation of their lucrative Levantine trade. The 1568 Accord aimed to maintain the status quo. It sought to prevent small disputes from escalating into full-blown war. The specific terms would have covered several key areas. Firstly, the safety and security of Venetian merchants. They were to be protected under Ottoman law. Their goods were not to be seized unjustly. Secondly, the treaty would have stipulated customs duties. These were the taxes Venetians paid on imported and exported goods. Fair and predictable tariffs were crucial for profitable trade. Venice always sought to keep these duties as low as possible. The Ottomans, naturally, saw them as a source of revenue. Finding a balance was a key part of the negotiations. Another important aspect was the definition of spheres of influence. Section 7. Commerce Unfettered. The treaty's boost to Mediterranean trade. With the 1568 agreement in place, Venetian merchants breathed easier. The renewal of capitulations provided a sense of security, though always tinged with the awareness of underlying tensions. Merchant galleys could once again sail with greater confidence. They journeyed to ports like Alexandria, Beirut, and Constantinople. These were the great emporia of the East. There, they exchanged European woolens, metals, and glassware for spices, silks, cotton, grains, and other exotic goods. This trade was the lifeblood of the Venetian Republic. The treaty helped ensure its continued flow for a time. The impact on the wider Mediterranean economy was noticeable. When Venetian trade flourished, so did many connected industries. Shipbuilding in the Venetian arsenal hummed with activity. Banking and insurance services expanded to support the voyages. Artisans in Venice produced goods specifically for Eastern markets. The city itself was a vibrant hub of international commerce. Its markets were filled with goods from around the known world. The treaty, by facilitating this trade, contributed to this prosperity. It reinforced Venice's role as a bridge between East and West, a conduit for goods, ideas, and cultural exchange. Diplomatic channels also benefited from the renewed accord. Section 8. A fragile calm, the Mediterranean, after the 1568 Pact. The immediate aftermath of the 1568 agreement was a period of relative calm. The Great Sea, so often churned by naval battles, was quieter. Merchant ships plied their routes with fewer disruptions. This was a welcome respite for the coastal populations. They had long suffered from raids and the constant fear of war. Both Venice and the Ottoman Empire could turn their attention inward, or towards other pressing foreign policy concerns. Venice could focus on its Italian affairs and its mainland territories. The Ottomans had ongoing issues in Persia and with Habsburg Austria. The Mediterranean front was, for a moment, less urgent. This fragile peace allowed both powers to regroup. Venice continued to build up its fleet and fortify its possessions. The arsenal, its great state shipyard, worked tirelessly. They knew that peace with the Ottomans was rarely permanent. The Republic needed to be ready for the next inevitable storm. The Ottomans, too, were not idle. Sultan Selim II and his advisors continued to eye Cyprus. The strategic and economic arguments for its conquest remained strong. The 1568 Pact did not resolve this fundamental point of contention. It merely postponed the confrontation. The treaty highlighted the complex nature of Mediterranean power dynamics. Section 9. Echoes through time. The treaty's enduring significance. The 1568 agreement, though a minor event in grand history, offers lessons. It underscores the enduring importance of diplomacy. Even in the face of deep-seated rivalry and suspicion, Venice and the Ottoman Empire were locked in a long struggle. Yet they found ways to negotiate, to trade, to coexist. This pragmatism was essential for their survival and prosperity. The treaty showed that common interests like commerce could bridge divides. It was a recognition that not all problems could be solved by war. Sometimes talking was the more sensible option. This remains a relevant lesson for international relations today. The Pact also highlights the complex nature of East-West relations. It was not simply a story of constant, unyielding conflict. There were periods of cooperation, cultural exchange, and mutual benefit. Venetian merchants lived in Ottoman cities for centuries. They learned languages, adopted customs, and facilitated trade. This interaction enriched both societies. The 1568 agreement was part of this long, intricate dance. A dance between confrontation and cautious engagement. It reminds us to look beyond simplistic narratives of clash, and to appreciate the nuances of historical interactions. While the peace secured in 1568 was fleeting, its attempt was significant.